everybody. Here we are back again. It's once again just your two dads. It's me, it's a guest, and we're going to talk about some stuff. I don't know what yet. We're going to learn that together. I'm here with Eric Herrera, and he's come to share his story of fatherhood and life. And like always, we will tag along and hopefully learn and enjoy as he shares what he's going to share. With that, though, we move things over to him, and I would like to introduce you, Eric, to whoever might be listening whenever this might come out. Go ahead and introduce yourself. Give us a little bit of your past.
My name is Eric Herrera. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. Grew up here all my life. Um, just was in a lot of sports, like a lot of like discipline background, structure, things of that nature. Um, but as I got older, kind of steered off that course. So then that's when I joined the military when I was 19. Um, did that for about 5 years. And then about 3 years after that, just in the active reserve. But during that time, that's when I became a dad and uh, just took a lot of the life lessons that I learned during the military and growing up and apply that to being a father.
Right on, right on. As far as your kids, how many do you have?
I have two. I
Right
have
on.
a 12 and a 9-year old.
Okay, so older than mine. Mine, you said 11 and 9?
12 and 9.
12 and 9. Mine turned 2 back in July. So you've been at it a little bit longer than me. Do you have any plans, just out of curiosity, to have a third one?
Yeah, I do. I actually have one on the way, so
Right on, right
that'll
on.
be another change of pace.
For sure. I've always made the joke that a parent that has 3 or more kids must be a superhero, and then I followed that up with, if you had a superpower, from all of this, from all the running around and all the raising of the of those sometimes terrorizing kids, what would your superpower be?
Uh, Probably reading people's minds. It's
Right
for
on.
just too much going around with people. So yeah, that would kind of help out a lot.
I feel that, and it's actually the first time someone's really given an answer that I can agree with. Usually it's my superpower is patience, or my superpower is planning, or whatever, and I'm like, no man, I want you to say my superpower is like super speed, or flight, or reading minds or something. Like, let's get nerdy with it. But that's cool, that's cool. Remind me again, what branch of the service were you in? Because I want to say, but I don't want to be wrong.
I was in the army. I was a combat engineer.
Right on. That's actually what I was going to say. That's the branch I was into, military intelligence, intel analyst. My buddy, when he's here, he is actually Army veteran too. I can't remember exactly what he did. It escapes me at this time, but yeah. Anyway, both in for, you know, um, by no means 20 years, but a little bit, and then out to face the world again. But I usually save this question for later on, I guess, since we've kind of already laid the groundwork for it. I'll go ahead. You you did your army thing, you came out, and then you started your family. How do you think that the army, or what we'll say, what was the number one thing do you think the army shaped in you as a father?
Um, just the structure, I guess. That's I've had that ever since like high school with sports, so it was kind of like second nature to me. But yeah, trying to keep that structure, and build off of that. Like, what is it? Uh, Giving them the discipline to to be more mature and everything like that. You see like a lot of kids that are just kind of out of control. So I never wanted my kids to be that way. I always wanted them to act a little older than what they were, a little bit more mature, because people see that and then they, well, don't expect more from you, but they uh, see that you can handle certain situations and that. So it's just like a, what is it, like a first impression almost. So yeah, that's kind of what it is, because that's what a lot of things are based on. So that's kind of what I instill on my kids to be about.
Right on. That actually kind of brings me into something that I hadn't originally planned to talk about, maybe at all, but I have been doing this bonus content, so to speak, I guess. It's not real episodes, they're much shorter, but I get a couple of previous guests on and we talk about mental toughness. I've had a rougher year. This past year, had a couple people die and just things stemming from that. And it's really made me wonder how mentally tough I am. And so I've been asking dads, are you mentally tough? How did you get it? And how do you plan to pass that on and make sure your kids are mentally tough as well? Because I certainly don't want my son to be, 40 years old and suddenly be like, oh, wow, like I could have been, so much stronger psychologically if my dad had just done this. So with that being said, not to get, and anything we ask here, just share as much as you want. Don't feel pressured to give too much out there. But how do you consider yourself to be mentally tough? And we'll start off here. And if you do, or if you don't, how did you build that? How did you get that, or not?
High school, no, I was, well, before high school, yeah, I wasn't really that mentally tough. When I got to high school, it got a little bit better, but yeah, the army kind of instilled that in me. Like, they people say like bad things about it. Oh, they turn you into what, like a robot or this and that, but that's not really what it is. It's more like they break you down as a human and then build you back up, and that helped a lot, especially like, well, a lot more of my confidence and everything like that. And the situations that I've been in with the military, um, it's something that normal people don't go through, and it's kind of that mentally prepared me, and it brought me to a mindset later on, like facing any kind of situation. It's like, well, no one's dead or no one's hurt, so it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, like a lot of people say, like for some reason, like I'm cool and calm collected. Sometimes it's just like that. This doesn't compare to other situations that I've been in, and I try to instill that on my kids too. It's kind of harder, especially with younger minds and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, I volunteer too for my daughter's teams too that she's a part of. So I try to bring that same mindset too, because I mean, yeah, especially like 12-year-olds, their minds are just very like sensitive and just they don't know who they are yet, kind of. So it's kind of like trying to build them up, trying to break them down a little bit, build them up at the same time. I can't do it as like military wise, but I still try to instill like talks and everything like that, like situations. I mean, I had a couple of situations this year with a couple of the girls, and trying to instill that in life lessons too, because you just never know. Things that happen now can prepare you for things later, and you might not think it's going to happen now, but when you come to it later on, you're like, oh yeah, okay, now I get it.
Yeah, for sure. That those things, those are usually, excuse me, the best lessons because you don't know you're learning them, and then they come into play later on in life. That actually brought up a couple different questions, and we'll get to them, I guess, in the order I wrote them down. So, yeah, we were both in the army, and we got out. There's reasons that we're not still in, but even with that being said, there's more than one thing that I do miss about the army. I miss something about it almost every day. I was wondering, what do you miss about being in the army?
Well, everyone, it's the camaraderie.
Yeah, I get that.
Um,
That's what a lot of people say.
It's a lot easier now. When I joined the military, um, like there was no Twitter, there was no YouTube, there was hardly any social media like to communicate with. Like we couldn't even video someone back home because I was stationed in Germany, so it's kind of hard. The only time we were able to talk to anybody is if phone card, talk on a payphone. You couldn't talk like this. This was non-existent. Like if there was this, but it's just like static and everything like that. So it's like it's a lot easier now to connect with guys that I have across the country. I have friends all over across the country. Some of them are still in, some of them are out, but I'm still able to communicate with them. Um, it's a little bit easier, but still at the same time, it's not that like face to face. So like every once in a while, I might see one of them. They might come down, or I might go visit. But yeah, it's that camaraderie, and that's also another problem with like soldiers because they'll get out and they'll think, "Oh, I miss the army. I miss it. I miss it." No, you really don't miss it. You miss the camaraderie. Once you once you get back in, you're like, "Oh, this is why I left." So it's like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I really do miss having just all kinds of friends, like honest to God friends around me, just every day. People that you would literally die for if you had to. And that is not something that I have, you know, in my normal day to day nowadays. I don't even have those same friends anymore. I got out right before there was a I got out right before there was a stop loss, and then directly after that, my unit was designated to go to Afghanistan. So they all deployed for a year, and I completely lost touch with them. And then once they got back, there was no reconnecting. So I lost like all of those friends, and yeah, it sucks, but life goes on. You move on, what have you. Um, I did want to ask you. You had kids that are, like I said, significantly older than mine. But if you could, for a minute, kind of step back and look at your children's lives up to now, would you say that, and compare this with what you expect of raising a kid? Would you expect that, or would you say that parenting has gotten hard for you at times already? Like with whatever they might be enduring or going through, or do you think that parenting will still get hard, quote unquote, like when they're in their teens or something? Because I feel that at my son's age, parenting's simply not hard. I just gotta like deal with him screaming when there's nothing I could do, and clean up poop and things of that sort. But at older kids, they can make bigger and bigger mistakes, and things can get pretty complicated. So with that being said, do you think that parenting has already started to get hard, or is that still to come?
It gets harder and harder, especially especially now with technology. It's even a hell of a lot worse. Um, Even from my parents, it's different, and now it's even harder. Yeah, the technology just makes it 100 times harder. Um, Deal with it not on a daily basis, but with the school, especially when I volunteer for sports. Yeah, I see it too with my players. Yeah, they're not even my kids, so it's just like it just gets constantly harder and harder, and especially when they get older, they have to think about the same things we thought about, like high school and college and things like that. But yeah, it doesn't for anyone. It doesn't get easier.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I've already kind of come to grips with that. Like, it gets harder gradually. So, if I woke up tomorrow and my son was 9, then it might be too much for me. It might be simply too much for me to handle. But the fact that I'm going to able to grow with him, 3, 4, 5, 6, and deal with all those things up until the 9, 10, it will be I will be more able to handle it and deal with it. But it's not gonna mean that 9 and 10 are easy. It's just gonna mean that I'm better able to handle what's going on and what I'm dealing with or what they're dealing with. So, uh, uh, shit, we may have spoke a little bit about this, or it might have just been in my mind. But when you were in the army, did you deploy anywhere?
Yeah, I deployed twice. I was in Baghdad from '06, '07, and then I was in the town, well, near a town called Hilla. It's like an hour and a half south of Baghdad from '08, '09.
Okay, so pretty close together. Uh, so I don't know. I really don't know how you'll answer this question, but I was curious, and I think there might be some listeners that are also curious. How did you go about, when you got back? Once again, I don't know how quickly you found out that you were leaving again, but when you got back, how did you readjust to, normal life? Like, was it hard for you to, get like a sleep routine back, or was it hard for you to just, go out in normal clothes again? Like, was it all that simple and you just snapped back to it?
Um, yeah, I don't remember very too much of that. It's just it you have to get back into routine. So like you're constantly doing stuff. So when you come back, um, it's like a reintegration period. So it's like a 2 week thing. So like you only have like half a days. You do your medical, you do just your paperwork stuff. So yeah, it's not a very good thing because it's only like half a day. So you go in the morning, see a couple PowerPoints, you leave by noon, and then you go out drinking because you haven't been drinking for about a year or 6 months or whatever. And that's usually when bad things happen. So then like the next day it's like even worse because half the people are hungover. I mean, there's even times where guys were puking in the middle of the presentations from the night before.
Um,
So yeah, that's like the danger period of actually coming back. A lot of guys deal with it differently. Me, I mean, I came back. Yeah, I was drinking, of course, because I haven't drank in a year, and actually being able to just chill out for a little bit is just uh, something that we kind of enjoyed. It was much harder my second time back because I came back a little bit early. I I knew like the arms room and everything like that. So I came back with Advon group, and at that time, that's when the swine flu was coming out, and and it was started in Germany. So when we got back, a lot of the guys got sick, like really sick. They had to get quarantined. I got mildly sick. I was just like heavy coughing and everything like that. So that integration back was just terrible. Um, but yeah, it's just something we just had to deal with. It's kind of different because being stationed in Germany, it's almost kind of like being stationed overseas. It's completely different than being stationed in the States. Um, and technically, I was literally gone for 5 years, even though I did come back for like 2 weeks at a time back to the States. Um, it was just like a big thing. Yeah, like I said, like Twitter wasn't around, YouTube wasn't around, the iPhone wasn't around. It was almost like I was like in a time warp from the time I when I came back to the States. That was the harder integration period for me because it was just a culture shock that just twisted like a 5 year span for me. So I had to get used to a lot of other things too. Um, yeah, it's like I didn't even, I saw the iPhone. I had no idea what it was um, until I finally got an iPhone, like maybe 5 years later or something like that. And I was like a little kid. I felt like an old man because I couldn't even work the dang thing, and these little kids are just pressing buttons and everything like that, no problem. So yeah, that was the more of the harder integration for me.
that actually sounds like a similar story that I've heard from someone who was in prison for a long time. When they got out, suddenly, there was Facebook and Twitter and all that, and they were just like, I don't know what's going on anymore. I feel so out of place. And yeah, I'm sure it was maybe a little bit more extreme for them, but it did ring a bell as being really similar. All that stuff, like it had to be jarring to just be like, like I was all living in a cave all that time where, where was I when all this stuff was happening?
Yeah.
I think that we've hit most of the questions that I had while we were talking. I know that you had typically I wait, well, I mean, if we're going by the clock, typically I wait another 9 minutes or so, but these things vary from interview to interview. And what I really want to do at this point is get into what you wanted to talk about. You had a message to share. I'm a little hazy because I schedule interviews with so many people. So once again, I'm going to be learning, what the thrust of this conversation along with the listener. But I want to give you this time to kind of talk about what it was that you wanted to talk about and get, that out to the listeners. I want to let you know that we have gotten some really good views from our reels lately. So just know that if you've got some, heartfelt messages, that they're going to be seen by, as many people as I can get them out to. And even if they're not heartfelt, even if it's just some cold hard wisdom, that'll help too. So, go ahead, take this time and just, freely talk about what it was that you wanted to share.
Yeah, I know. Um, I know when I came back, like I said before, I had a hard time coming back. And it was like a 10-year period where I was just dealing with stuff. It was a lot of drinking and just dealing with my own demons of what happened. We lost a lot of guys for my first deployment, and a lot of them were really good friends. And dealing with that coming back was just hard. It was always like it had it built in. I never really talked about what I did. Um, my family kind of knew what I did, but they didn't know like the extent of it all. Um, and 10 years after I got back, it was like 2019. I just had like a mental breakdown in my kitchen. And at that point, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I could start healing now. Um, so then I was just putting my thoughts on paper. I was making videos of things that were happening um, while I was in, and that really wasn't getting out there. So then I just started writing and kept writing, and to a point where I wrote my book from my time into the military. And the more I was writing, the more I felt better. So it was it was just like, okay, maybe this is something that I could do. I never thought about writing anything. I was never really a good good writer or anything of that nature, but I just wrote down what I knew. And I got like some help from guys that I was in with, and they were telling me stories, and I'm like, you gotta put this story and you gotta put that story in. And so it's just like, all right, I'll do as best as I can. I put in even the times where we lost soldiers. I know it was always like a controversial issue, especially when things were happening. But at that point, I really didn't care. I was just going to tell the truth. So I just decided to self-publish, um, and keep every word in it, and just had my story out there. And that happened over like a 6 month span. And the message I try to get out there is that no matter how long it takes, you just never know. Um, find that thing that will help you heal. And I never thought writing a book would ever help me heal, but it actually ended up doing that. Um, and after I published it and told all the stories, told everything, I didn't have to carry it anymore. I didn't have nightmares anymore. I quit drinking. Um, it was just something that like that weight was lifted off. I didn't have to carry it anymore. It's all written down. If someone wants to read it, wants to learn about it, they could read it. I don't have to tell the story anymore. I don't have to carry it anymore. So it's just living better. I spend most of the time with my kids now, and it's just a lot better. They notice a change in me, and I'm just there for them. It helped me be a better father. I'm not completely healed up. I don't think I'll ever be completely healed, but most of it, yeah. but that's just the message I was trying to get out there.
Right on, man. As you started talking, I was like, oh yeah, this is about a book, but uh, I did not know that it was going to be basically, excuse me, like a journal, like a a personal diary. But that does click with the fact that you got healing from that, because I've always read and been told that journaling is usually supposed to be super helpful for depression, for anxiety, for whatever mental illness you might be enduring. And I've never really been super great at journaling, which is weird because I like to write, but I don't like to journal. So I've not ever got any relief from that. But it is awesome to hear that firsthand evidence that it works, that it worked for you, that if it did work for you, it could work for anyone. And at the same time, you put something out there that is a testament to endurance and resilience and mental toughness, and just basically letting people know that, not to be too generic, but it is darkest before the dawn, and that things can get better. And I really do applaud you taking something that was super personal, and putting that out there for just anybody in the world to read. And I'm sure that if one person did, then that one person has surely got something from it. Uh, do you have? I was when you were describing it, I was like, should I ask for his most memorable story, or is that like is that just too predictable? But we'll go with just I guess if you could give like a brief elevator pitch, is what they call it. Just a few quick words. Like if I was an agent that you met in an elevator and you wanted to try to sell the book to me, would you do you have anything down, as far as like a slogan, or I don't know, some sort of like advertising for the book, that maybe like how books will have like a tagline on them or whatever that talk about it. Like, do you have anything like that you can share with the listeners to kind of draw them in, to get them more likely to buy the book?
Um, you're asking that, I kind of just put that in the title of my book. That's the whole
Yeah,
thing.
that's another thing I wrote down, is what's the name of the book?
Yeah, so I mean, I have it right here. It's a bomb hunter story, my life clearing the roads of Iraq. So it's
All right, let me write that down. That's really cool artwork. Did you like get is that like some sort of, it looks real. Like, is that a picture, or is that
yeah,
like true art?
it's an MRAP. Um, and then I had someone design that for me. I'm not an artist, so it was just something I told them I want them to do, and they put it together nicely. So I have no complaints about it.
And it looks really good. And I mean, as superficial as it is, a good cover will help you buy, it'll help you sell books. It strikes me, seeing that, when you look at the cover, does that put you back? Does that make you think of like, one tour in particular, one night in particular, or is it just like a generic enough picture that it doesn't strike a memory with you?
Yeah, it's just a generic picture. It's just those were the vehicles that we drove my second deployment. So my second deployment wasn't as memorable as my first one. But yeah, most of my uh, just rough thing about the book is just, yeah, my time during high school, how I ended up getting in the military, and my time in Germany, both of my deployments, um, and then uh, after I got out of the military, just the different phases and why I left. Just how my mind changed from when I started to when I finished. Uh, it's just as real as I can make it. Is every single thought I have. If you want something real, like raw emotion, that's what it is. Um, I know. I know when I gave it to my mother, she didn't read it at first. She's just like, I don't think I want to read it, but she ended up doing it. I know a couple people like breezed through it because they couldn't put it down. I know a couple people had to stop because it just got a little bit too real. It was just that was just something that I didn't want to hold back, because if I held something back, then I would regret it. I didn't want to have any regrets. And then when I finally did publish it, um, I had people that were in my unit that I never even talked to uh, try to contact me, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna. I'm not going to do that because I know what certain people did and what were their roles in different things. I'm just not going to give them the satisfaction or try to make up for whatever they did. So I just left it everything in the book.
Sounds like it's some cold honesty there. Actually really intrigued to read it. I will have to look that up. I was wondering though, where would I get it if I wanted it?
It's on Amazon, so it's paperback, and then also it's in the Kindle version. I
Cool,
wanted
cool.
to do a video book, but like that's like a whole nother world to do audio for it. Um, so yeah, but I stopped trying to do that. But those are the two ways you could get it.
Right on. I mean, just from a complete stranger, if you wanted to do an audiobook, I think you've got the voice to do it yourself if you wanted to. So you probably cut down on some expenses that way.
Yep.
Uh, I'm sure that it's not like I don't know how much it costs to self-publish a book, but I feel like it's probably as expensive or more expensive to do an audiobook. So if you're doing it yourself, at least you're not paying somebody. Um, did I have? Oh, yeah, I was wondering. So you say that you basically left it all in there, but did you when you finish the book, when you send it off to be put on Amazon published, was it did anything pop up where you're like, oh man, like I forgot this or I forgot that, such that you feel like maybe you could write another book?
Yeah, I did leave stuff out because a lot of the well, some of the people that are in the book are still in. So some stories I couldn't put in. I didn't want jeopardize their careers or in any way whatsoever. So yeah, I always thought about that, but I wouldn't know how I would go about it since I already laid the groundwork for this. Probably the other one would just be stories of different things. But yeah, I try to put as much stories, funny stories, bar stories, things that happen downrange. So it's just like it's all um, big ball of twine of different things.
Well, I mean, as soon as you were saying this book full of army stories, I'm like, well, there's got to be some action in there. So I'm all about that. As far as the writing side of things now, you've got a book published, you've got a book out there, you've done it. Is there any desire for you to write anything else? Fantasy story, science fiction, anything like that?
I thought about it. I just don't know where I would start. That's the thing. Um, I think it would be doing more for military families and purposes like that. Because it was down the road, we ended up finding like a Humvee, a military Humvee that was from the Ohio National Guard, and we ended up taking it to car shows. We were just doing it just to just shoot the breeze with people, but the thing that just happened like spontaneously was I got a lot of veterans that came up to me and would say, oh yeah, I remember that, and they would all of a sudden just open up about their time in the military, especially like Vietnam vets too would come and just start talking. Vietnam vets don't like to talk about anything.
I was gonna
and,
say like they were
and
talking to.
yeah, so like they would just randomly come up and just be like, "Yeah, it's like, do you remember this?" And just start telling random stories. It was just something that I realized that was happening, and it was just like, you know what, this actually kind of does help. Especially, you never know who's going to come up. It helps them. I had an incident one time. It was a young guy. He just got out of the military. He was there with his uncle, and his uncle was a mechanic, and he was a mechanic in the military, the young guy, and he was showing his uncle like this is what I worked on. They had to have been around the vehicle for at least 45 minutes. They were even under the vehicle. He was showing his uncle it was like what this is and what that is. And it was just like it was like heartfelt because all of a sudden it was just like a moment between just two family members off of something that they never expected that was going to happen. And that's when I kind of realized we brought it to more car shows, and then we realized we are getting more and more of these stories. So it was just like some spontaneous thing that also would help veterans, because there's always veterans out there and they just don't show them that they are. But when this comes out, then they start telling their stories, and then they feel a lot better. And it's something like that I could give back. Yeah, that's worth it all.
I totally feel, as far as it's, I can't think of many things that are harder than getting a veteran to open up and talk. But everyone I've talked to always says that after they're done, that they always feel better about it. So it's, if you can do something like that, that you can be involved somehow in, letting them get their, like basically what I'm doing, letting them get their story out, then I wholly support that. Whatever, I can't think of anything other than what you're already doing, but at which keep on keeping on. But there's so many veterans that are just, they don't get the help, they don't get the support, they don't get the friendship, that we all need. And I just feel like it's sad, and I don't think it's going to change. But if nothing else, then other veterans can, do our part to help out. And it's good to meet somebody that's doing that, that's picking up the slack and helping out where they can. I would be more than happy to get you back on if you have anything else that you want to share. If anything pops up, or as far as like, in terms of another book, did you ever think about taking some of these stories that you're getting, changing the names and putting those into a book?
Um, Stories that are already in it, or just other
Like these stories that some of these veterans are telling you at these car shows, like you know uh changing his name to whatever, and then putting that story in another book. Have you ever thought about anything like that?
um, no, it's just I wouldn't even think about doing it. I'm just there to listen, just lending an ear. Um, I have no, I mean, I have nothing to gain from it. I'm just trying to give back, and I found a way to spontaneously to help veterans in my own way, and that's just something that I enjoy doing. If they want to tell me a little story about something, go ahead. If it makes them feel better, brings a little smile on their face, yeah, I do it for them. I mean, it's all them. I just give it a little bit of a push, so to say.
It's cool that it was something that you didn't have to manipulate or try to make happen. It just kind of fell into place, based on things that you were already doing. And it just so happens that you get the benefit of actually helping people while you're doing it. So I guess that kind of does bring us down here to the end. As I said, these things will change in time as the topics and the interviewee changes. But before we do get out of here, did want to give you this time at the end to, I guess, basically to share anything else that you had held back or that you had yet to get out.
No, the only thing is I do a TikTok. It's Sapper 720. So SAPPER 720. Um, I just do a lot of military things on there. Um, and just little funny things. I even tell some stories that I didn't even tell in my book, because there's always something that pops up in the news or anything like that. So it just just give like a funny aspect to it, or what's actually going through the mind of actual veterans when those situations arise.
Right on. Then I'll definitely follow you there. I don't watch a lot of videos on TikTok because I don't know a lot of those people. But if I'm following somebody that I actually have some sort of relationship with, and I will watch things that they post. So I'll follow you there, and definitely give whatever you put out a listen. And there will come a time, if you're at all active, that you will see at least a couple reels from this appear on TikTok. So you'll get to see yourself become internet famous. I had one guy tell a story about he wasn't like super specific about the relationship beyond. The guy was a friend of his that was also in the military, and he was deployed to Iraq. Well, he was deployed to Afghanistan, I believe it was, and he stepped on an IED, blew off his leg up to the knee. But he had so much, they'd invested so much in his training, which, take that for what it's worth. I don't know if that means he was special forces or whatever, that they gave him the chance to recertify with a prosthetic and to come back. And so he did that, and he came back and he deployed again to Iraq, and he went out and stepped on an IED again. And as soon as it went off, this this huge group of Taliban came rushing over the hill, firing shots at him and his platoon. And the guy said that he was so mad that he had lost the same leg twice, that he jumped back up and started firing shots back at him, and scared him so bad that they all turned around and ran away. And the I don't do it justice, but that reel went like viral. It was crazy. It's gotten almost 600,000 views. So there will, hopefully be something that we share here that strikes a chord, and and gets you some people checking you out, and jumping over there on your profile, and becoming acquainted with who you are, and your book, and that sort of thing. If I can, help drive traffic your way, then all the better. But
Yeah,
one
I
other
kind
thing.
of that
I'm
that I
sorry.
put in the. I kind of have a story that I put in that in the book. Yeah, because I never told you. Yeah, we used to do route clearance. So what we would do is we would clear the roads of the IEDs. So that was our job. We would just drive 5 miles an hour down the road, look for these IEDs. Um, I don't know. We did a night mission one time, and you could see us from miles away because we got these giant lights on our vehicles, so you obviously know that we're coming. And I think it was like one mission um, we decided that we were going to have a couple Humvees out and in blackout. So the convoy would go up, we would hang back a little bit, but there's this big, huge, like highway intersection in the middle of Baghdad, and we were underneath one of the off ramps, just sitting there, in blackout, watching the patrol go around. And we noticed behind us that there was a supply convoy coming in, and we're like, no, we can't. We got to get out of the way because we don't want, first of all, the supply convoy to like run into us when we're in blackout, or we don't want them to give up our position. And so my driver, he peeled off. We went over to a different section of the highway. As the convoy was coming by, an IED went off, and it was actually in the spot we were sitting in. It blew up. It blew up a tanker, and we're like, "Holy shit!" Like we didn't see it because we were in blackout, obviously, and it was underneath the off ramp, so it was like stuffed underneath there. And when it blew up, we were like, "Holy crap!" We were literally sitting on top of this thing, and obviously someone was watching because it detonated. Someone had to have detonated nearby because it went off on the tanker. And that was it's one thing that was a big controversy while we were out there. And I talk about the situations afterwards and during, and I'm like, yeah, we were literally sitting on top of an IED for at least about 5-10 minutes, didn't even know it was there. And this convoy goes in the same exact spot and gets blown up. So like it helped us out that we're actually in blackout, but hey, same time we didn't see it.
Wow, that's crazy. It's like, did he, like, so you think he just didn't know you were there?
No, because it was completely dark, middle of the night. There's no street lights, nothing. So I
Wow, that's
mean, you can't see anything on the highway unless you see our big lights. But they obviously know who we are because of we're the only ones that have certain vehicles. So they're not going to waste an IED on us because we have more protective armor on our vehicles. So they weren't going to waste it on us. They might as well waste it on on a fuel tanker. So
okay.
just boy, but yeah, it was just like
Wow, that's
I put
crazy, man.
that story, and my mom read that one. She was just like, I just want to kill you. I'm like, well, that's one of the crazy things we ended up doing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't off the top of my head, I can't think of any details, but there's more than one story I've heard where it's basically like, if I had been one step to the left or if I had waited 5 more minutes, like I wouldn't be here today. I bet, I mean, the best I got, well, I say the best. I don't know that I would definitely or I necessarily want to describe it a deployment as best or worst, but the only real deployment I got was to Bosnia. So my uh, anxiety, my tension level was a lot lower than yours was, basically on any given day. But I feel like for you, at least the way I envision it, that it was like every single day somebody, like maybe even in your own unit, somebody was like, almost died today. Like I just missed it today. And like it just every day someone different is like, yeah, almost died, almost died. Like it's just got to be crazy how people are just like, one person like narrowly misses death like half a dozen times. And then the next person over like walks outside and gets hit by a sniper or something. It's just, the whole thing is just insane. But
Yeah, I know. Like, me personally, I've been blown up 2 or 3 times, but I've had guys in my unit, in my platoon, 4 or 5 times, and it gets to a point where it's like you have to laugh it off. If you don't laugh it off, then you're just gonna stick in your mind. And it was just it's like a weird, sick thing about it that's how we coped with it. We had to laugh it off. It was just otherwise we wouldn't be able to go out the next day. It was just that mentality that we had.
yeah, I've read about that too. I was just listening to a podcast about those guys. The I don't know, a soccer player or soccer team, rugby team, something like that. But their plane crashed in the Andes, and they had to like eat the dead people to survive. And the survivors basically said that one of the only things, or I guess the most important thing that got them through, was that they were able to somehow still laugh at certain situations that they were in certain parts of what they were dealing with, and that dark humor actually helped them keep from going crazy.
Hmm.
And I think that it's, I'm sure that there's differences or what have you, but I feel like that is basically like what you're talking about. Like if you couldn't laugh at it, then it's going to eat away at you until, you just snap. So
Yeah.
it's the more I hear about it, the more I'm like, I don't think I could have handled it. I don't think I could have handled it. I just the idea of being separated from, like, you basically separating from life for a full year and inserting yourself in a new life, and then just hope, because in the army we got deployed, not me, but like the army would get deployed repeatedly. So you do that year, and then the year's over, and you're like, man, I hope I don't have to do that again. But inevitably, like seemingly seems like 9 times out of 10, the guys that go have to go back again, just the way it was with you. And I think about that, and it just like I will still have nightmares sometimes where I've like re-enlisted, and I don't know why I'm re-enlisted, but I'm back in and I'm deployed, so I can't go AWOL, and it's just like a horror, and I don't know, why I've made this decision. I don't know how to get out of it, and I feel like that's the dream version of a real deployment, because you wake up and it's like, fuck, dude, there's like 279 more days until I can go back and see the people I love, the people I care about. And, you're risking your life day after day after day. And I just, I'm very grateful that I did not have to endure it. And at the same time, the respect I have for the people that did, it's just enormous. I mean, maybe even like I might blow it out of proportion just because I feel like it would be so much harder for me. But at the same time, like, much respect to you for going through that sort of thing twice. It's just, it's no, in my mind, it's no easier than any other deployment in any other war. I think that you guys endured difficulties that were just as hard or harder than anybody from World War II to Vietnam. And the fact that you're able to live, from what little I know, presumably a normal life, being what appears to be a really good dad. I mean, taking an active role in your kids' lives. That's just, that's really to be commended. And I don't know if anybody's told you lately, but you're doing really good. And I am, I guess I'm just like I'm glad to know that somebody has a success story, and that we didn't get on here, and I found out that you were not doing good, and I'm sure that you've got issues. We all do, even like me, the ones that didn't really deploy anywhere. But to know that you've got your life basically on track, it's really encouraging, and really makes me feel, signing off, it makes me feel optimistic. So I'm glad that we were able to talk, and I'm glad that you shared your story with me. With the end here, I do well. When I have my co-hosts, we will always try to end the show on a high note, on a like with a laugh, because sometimes we do talk about some pretty serious stuff. So we've got one guy. He's got himself it's one of those uh, WWE belts that you buy from Walmart, and he calls himself the dad joke champion. Well, I'm not the dad joke champion, but I do have a joke that I'm going to share here to send us off. Looked for the one that was funniest to me, and maybe you've heard it before. It seems like we've never told a joke that someone's not heard before. But with that being said, a man had been drinking at a bar all night and pukes down the front of his shirt. He says, "Shit, I can't go home like this. My wife will kill me." The bartender sees this and says, "Put a $20 bill in your pocket. And when she sees the puke, tell her some drunk puked on you and gave you $20 for dry cleaning." So the guy thanks him. He goes home. Immediately, his wife sees the puke on his shirt, and she asks what happened. And he replies, "A drunk guy puked on me and he gave me $20 to pay for dry cleaning." And his wife says, "Okay, then. Well, why do you have $40 in your hand?" "Because he also shit in my pants." And that was the funniest joke that I could find in about 5 minutes. So at least it got a laugh out of you. I'm typically like, I don't know, like all of these interviews make me anxious, but for some reason, telling the joke at the end is like something that I usually just avoid. I just don't even say them. But these last two times, I've tried to throw out one. So I'm glad that got a chuckle. But that does bring us down here to the end. I just want to thank you again, Eric, for coming on here, man. You've been really open. You even gave us a really cool story. So glad to hear that. And I'm glad to get your message out there. I know that, just like always, I'm going to be a little bit better person, a little bit maybe in this case in particular, a little bit mentally tougher when I think about what you've gone through, and how you've bounced back, and made good on that. So it's always nice to be able to have, I mean, I don't want to like put any pressure on you, but like, basically a role model to kind of look to when I need to. I don't have just one, so not too much pressure, but it's nice to know that there are people that have gone through much worse than me and that are doing as good or better. So that is really encouraging. And thanks again for coming on the show. If like I said, if you ever want to come on back, if you've got anything else you want to talk about, anything else you want to share, usually with my other co-hosts, we will get more into like dad specific things, like like what was your latest dad win, and things like that. But when it's just me, things tend to be more like, I guess it varies with the guest, but in your particular case, it was always going to be more Army focused. So that's just how it went out that day, and hopefully the people like it. If they don't, I'll never know, because I get zero feedback. I get listens, but I get zero feedback. Like I've had like 3 people maybe say something positive about the show. I get reviews, but almost no actual, or like the 5-star reviews. But as far as like people typing out words, I almost never get that. So I just assume that they like everything I do, and that they have nothing to complain about. So anyways, just one last time to let you say your goodbyes, and get anything else out there to the listeners before we say goodbye.
No, that's about it. I appreciate you having me on.
Right on, man. I do appreciate you coming. And once again, I've got that book title wrote down here, and I've got your TikTok, whatever it is, handle, channel. I don't know what they call them, but I'll be giving those a look. And I've got a Kindle behind the laptop here, so I might be buying a new book. Who knows? But with that being said, from all of us here at Your Two Dads, we will thank you for coming, and we'll check you later. And that is going to be the end of the podcast. everything that we say now is just going to get deleted. But once again, man, thanks for coming on. I never, we talked, but we talked a little bit less than I do with some guests, just because of the like our scheduling kind of didn't come together as quickly as others do. So I was never really sure that it was even going to go through until you showed up here tonight. So thanks again for taking the time out of your life. You got 2 kids, so I know you're busy. And in addition to whatever else you got going on. And once again, thanks for sharing all that with whoever might listen, and hopefully they get as much or more out of it than I did.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, man. Appreciate it.
Right on. Well, I'm glad to hear that. I always hope that if nothing else, I like hearing that the guests had a good time. So yeah, thanks for sharing that too. And I guess well, it's not the weekend yet, but have a good rest of your week and a Merry Christmas, man.
Yeah, you too.
Right on. If I haven't already, I will send you a friend request on Facebook, and in addition to the TikTok thing, and that way, if there is a need for us to communicate or talk about the podcast, then we'll have an easy way to do it.
Okay, yeah, no problem.
Right on, man. Other than that, you take it easy, and I'll talk to you later.
Yep, have a good one.